Welcome to SunnySpeaks, here again with another review for you, and you. And today I'm here to talk about How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, directed by Dean Deblois and starring Mason Thames, Gerard Butler, Nico Parker, and many more. On the island Berk, Vikings fight dragons. It's as simple as that. But a young Viking named Hiccup, played by Mason Thames, struggles to find his place in tradition and connecting with his father, Stoick the Vast, played by Gerard Butler, who is also the chief. One day, Hiccup has the choice to either kill or free a dragon that he has captured. What first starts as two beings on opposite sides of a war becomes a bond that can forge a new and better future. We live in the time of the live action remakes. I've never been a fan of them at all, honestly. But as a person who can appreciate the original, How to Train Your Dragon, but was never a huge fan of it, I honestly think this is one of, if not the best live action remake I've ever seen. Biggest reason for that has to be because the original director came back to make this live action remake. In his own words, I can preserve its integrity and pay tribute to the fans as well. Though the film has some good performances that I'll speak on, the best positive about this remake is the detail towards aesthetic and atmosphere. Dominic Watkins heads the production design on this film, and I truly loved how everything looked. The way Berk looked, the outfits from armor to detachable limbs to the way the weapons looked, it was very cool and made everything feel more immersive. Definitely my favorite part of the movie. The music composed by Powell, who was actually the composer of the original How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. The music he provides in this, I would say, is a close second for me for my favorite thing about this film overall. Especially in the first flight scene with Hiccup and Toothless, I thought that scene, the music, added so much emotional effect to that entire thing. Speaking of Hiccup, I think Mason Thames did a really good job being the lead in this film. I've only seen him in one other film, The Black Phone, and I really liked that movie and his performance in that, so I'm curious where his career goes from here. For a live action remake, I think he had such an animated presence about him that fit the narrative and overall vibe of the film. He balanced being funny, brave, scared, confident, intelligent, and most importantly, heartfelt, which is the one word I'd use to describe my experience watching this. Hiccup's relationship with Toothless is really when the movie starts to pick up steam and has its best scenes when they are together. I loved Toothless in this. Not only is the CGI great, but I forgot how lovable Toothless is. He's like a dog-dragon hybrid. The first flight scene to me, like I've said, probably takes the cake as the best scene in the entire movie. From the way it was shot, the music used, and the buildup of chemistry and connection between Hiccup and Toothless, but they have some other scenes later, like in the climax of the film, that was super dope. Hiccup's connection with his father, Stoick the Vast, was a weaker part to this film for me. I never found their scenes bad, but I'm pretty indifferent to Gerard Butler in general as a performer, though thinking he gave the role a good amount of energy and power. I didn't find his character that interesting, and when he would put Hiccup down, it just made him a little more unlikable, which I do think is the point of those scenes. And at least I'm glad the movie never made him stupid, and the rift created between Hiccup and Stoick always made sense logically, which I appreciated, because most movies, most kids movies too, when they create some sort of rift, it's always like somebody's just looking past the obvious answer to be upset, and I don't think this movie does that. Hiccup's chemistry with Astrid, played by Nico Parker, is the best to me when speaking to human on human chemistry. Though their lines at times were very cheesy or ridiculous, I did like the vibe between them and the connection that grows throughout the film. My second favorite would be Hiccup and Gobber, played by Nick Frost, which I could barely tell it was him at first visually. I could just hear the voice. I liked their scenes a lot, and I wish we could have had a little more time to flesh out their mentor-mentee dynamic. It seems like Gobber understands Hiccup in a way that no one else really does on the island, and I thought that would have been more fascinating to delve into further, but maybe they'll do more sequels. I never saw How to Train Your Dragon 2 or 3, so this is again me being pretty blind in my review. There are a assortment of other side characters that are around to provide comedic relief, and a lot of it is hit or miss, mainly miss. But I will shout out Julian Dennison as Fishlegs, not because he was super funny, but because of his commitment to every joke he has to deliver, and just the character at all times. Some of his facial expressions were crazy. I've only seen him in Deadpool 2, and again, very curious as to where this actor goes, because I think he's very talented, and I'm curious what he would do with other roles that don't need him to be funny, but maybe more serious. Now, a question that I've heard many times about this movie, but really all live action remakes. Does this movie deserve to exist? My take on that is no, not really. Even the original director saying he's not a fan of these remakes and took the helm so they wouldn't mess it up, basically tells you all you need to know. But I will say this, stop being an old head. Not everyone is going to watch the original, and I'm sorry if that's such a horrible or blasphemous thing for you to hear, but look at the 3 Star Wars trilogies as a prime example. All of them are for different generations to enjoy on the big screen. And though this may be a shot-for-shot remake to the animated movie, I'm not sure. I've only heard that it is, and I wouldn't doubt it. I still think kids today would love this movie. And I saw kids in the theater who did love this movie. And so honestly, depending on if this movie sucked, maybe my opinion would be different on this topic. But again, this might be the best live action remake I've ever seen. But even in saying that, I don't think that's a high bar. Overall, I would give How to Train Your Dragon live action remake a cloudy rating. I debated if this movie was closer to partly sunny and cloudy the entire time watching the movie. It was a pretty difficult decision for me, but landed on cloudy. The best way to describe my feelings about this movie is that halfway through, or maybe a third through the movie, I got very tired, and I've fallen asleep in movies often, especially after starting this journey reviewing movies and sharing my thoughts. I've fallen asleep on a lot of things that didn't get a short or get a review because I fell asleep. And I can say that this movie, How to Train Your Dragon live action, I didn't want to go to sleep. Despite me being very tired, I never wanted to fall asleep. Maybe it was the look of the film, or the cool shots of dragons doing cool shit, or the heart of this story, but it had my attention the whole time. And I'm glad I watched it because I had a lot of fun, and it did bring back some memories of seeing the animated movie again, because it's just a very cool concept that I'm glad that kids get to enjoy. This has been my review of How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. If you have seen How to Train Your Dragon, let me know what you think in the comments down below, because perspective is key, especially if you've seen the animated and now seen the live action remake. I'm curious if it is shot for shot, I'm not sure, or if you like the animated one a lot more, or if you have a hot take and you think the live action is better. Very curious on any of your guys' thoughts. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll be back again. Peace.